So there are 4 bolts that hold this box on that you can access through the back of the frame rail, which you'll have to get under the vehicle for, so you can see one of the top ones here. There's another one below that down here. Then there's 2 more on this side, which I'll show you on the inside of the frame rail. This one is the one I just got first, which is the easiest to access. And then there's 3 you're going to have to access behind this cross member here. They kind of have this like really thick spacer, not a washer, but there's these 2 right here. And then there's one kind of back in here. It's this one. Let me get a better angle at it. And they're all, I think, 5/8. If yours are greasy, just clean them all off before you get at them. It'll be easier to get them out. And on the new box, I can show you even better. Like this is the back of the new box. If you're looking from the inside of the frame rail, these are the 2 easy ones that you can kind of see. That you get behind, like if you get behind that cross member. This is the other one that I got from the front of the truck in front of that cross member, and this is that hard one to see. But just showing you so it's easier to see how all of them are laid out. Now this is looking from the front again, and you can kind of see that long spacer type thing on that really hard to reach bolt, because this is the easy to reach one. And right here is that it's real greasy, but that's the greasy spacer for that hard to reach bolt. Now I'm gonna try and get at this bottom one from the back, and then that top one I'm gonna see if I can reach it from the top. This one was real easy. The other one was not. So in order to get to the really difficult one that's kind of tucked away, I actually had to go from the top and then take that same 5/8 long socket with that half drive and then reach back in there from the top. I'm not able to move very much, but once you get it on there, it'll kind of stay on there, and then you can just kind of back it out a little bit at a time. And then I'll use that same wrench and socket if I can get it from the top for this top bolt here. But this is the easiest way that I found. Now that I've gotten that real difficult bolt out, and now this bolt right here is going to be the last one that I need to take out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to only take it out part of the way, and if the box is still kind of on the frame, I might tap it with a hammer, but that's the only thing that needs to come off now. I'm using a shorter setup now instead of that long 5/8 socket. I got a 3/8 drive adapter with a short 5/8 socket so that I don't have to hit the fan shroud when I'm taking it out, but it's separating, so I guess I don't need to pry anything. This thing's a good 35 some odd pounds. I'm going to go put a pan below this so I can catch the fluid if it comes out, but I'm going to back it out a little bit more. So here I've gotten the box out. So what I did is put some vice grips on the adjustment nut, and then I used my right hand to work the ratchet to take that last bolt out, and I held it with my left hand. It's heavy. It's, like I said, 35-ish pounds. It's not a light box by any means, but then I just lifted it out, just kind of lifted it out through there. What I'm going to do next, I'm going to clean everything up and inspect this area of the frame, because sometimes there can be cracks here. There have been known to be cracks here on square bodies and the steering box part of the frame, so I'm going to inspect that and then get to working with the new steering box. The next thing to do would be clean all these parts up. Haven't decided either. I'm definitely going to use goof off, but then I might use orange degreaser or something, wash it in a little container. So here I get everything sort of cleaned up. The trick I found to getting the old Loctite off is you just take a torch, you barely torch it, and then you hit it with a wire wheel and it comes right off. Now the prep I'm doing for the box is two things. Since I'm going to be using an inverted flare fitting instead of an O-ring fitting, so any truck, I'd say pre-80s, has an inverted flare fitting. So they include these brass inserts that'll seal, that you just insert into each of the ports. I've already done this one, but they basically just, and I'm going to use a little pick to guide mine in, but they basically just drop in, and they don't need an O-ring under them, and they're loose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the plastic caps, like the shipping caps, and I'm going to put it back on until I'm ready to connect my hoses during install. And the second thing is centering this thing. So what you're doing is inserting the rag joint onto the shaft and then rotating it all the way in one direction to find the end of the box. So there's the end of mine. And then you have to rotate it all the way the other direction and count the turns. So it'll be 1/2, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and then 3. That's the end of the box. So in this case, this is a 3 rotations, full travel, and then you'll divide that number by 2 to center it, put it exactly in the middle. So I'm going to go 1/2, 1, and then 1.5. That's in the middle. So now the box is centered. By the way, this is a 3/4 by 30 spline shaft. I mean, when I measure it, it's 0.61 inches, but I don't know where the 3/4 comes in. But It is that type of rag joint. Any truck pre 77 will need a different rag joint than it currently has. Like I said, my column's been swapped for a GMT 400 steering shaft and column, so I don't really have that issue because my truck's a 76. But so so the first thing I did to get it in is I had somebody hold it from the bottom while I only started this one bolt from the back, just the same way I took it out. I just started this one, didn't put any thread locker on it. What I'm going to do is this one and the other one down here, the one in front of the cross member, I'm going to start, not put any thread locker on. That way the other two, like this one down here and then the higher one up here, the hard one to get to, I'm going to thread lock and torque those, and then I'm going to take these two that I put in first out, thread lock those, and then torque those. So with getting the bolts back in these things, I've gotten them all down now, all Loctited and torqued down. I wanted to show you that really tricky bolt down there, that if you're looking from this side, that bottom right bolt, you can get to it. Like this is, I just finished torque wrenching it. I did have to finagle it, kind of use the flex of the wrench to get around this this AC bracket, which I'm not using. It's also the power steering pump bracket, but it can be done. I did use a long 5/8 to get down there and get that bolt, and they do start pretty easy. Very high quality threading on these, but I just wanted to show you that it's definitely possible to get a torque wrench like this down there. Obviously, the sockets fell out, but you know, it's definitely still possible to torque all four of them. And the torque spec for these is going to be between 65 and 75, is what the Haynes manual says in foot-pounds. I just did them all to 70 with thread locker. And then behind each of the bolts, since this is like machined steel on the steering box, I put a little bit of fluid film behind each of those spots. You can do WD-40 or whatever, just to, since it's raw metal, just to keep it from rusting to the frame or corroding. Now at this point, we're ready to install our, well, if you don't have a slip shaft, it's going to be your rag joint or whatever. But since I have a slip shaft, I'm going to be installing the lower part of the shaft with the rag joint. So you can simply, the flat spot here, match it up with a flat spot on your rag joint. If you have a slip shaft like me, first insert it onto the slip shaft, and then it should slide right on. It's a new box, so it's a little tight. And then install your clamping bolt. If you have a style that has a that's not like a cinch type rag joint, like one from Borgeson, that takes a set screw, tighten the set screw, and then the clamping bolt. I'm comfortable doing it by hand. I don't necessarily need a torque wrench. Right about there. And it also sits, this intermediate shaft sits a little farther down because the box is a little farther out. So now this pitman arm, if you did your alignment correctly, you should have your 9 splines facing out towards you, and in that case, the pitman arm will also. Your pitman arm should, like, if you need to, spread these out with a screwdriver, and they should just be wide enough to slip on. And don't ever try to hammer it from the bottom when you're putting this thing on. Don't try to hammer this from the bottom; it will damage it. Now it'd suck to lose whatever $550 for a good box. Mine is a nice tight fit. I didn't have to spread mine, but simply slide it on. And it'll go on. The way the bolt goes in is, so you'll have your bolt. It'll go in. Oh, oops. Actually, this should line up with the groove, which it did. The bolt goes in, and then your washer and nut go on the other side. And this is torqued to 90 foot-pounds, I believe. Now for putting the drag link back on, first thing you want to do is obviously clean it off, wipe the threads and everything on that off. You might have to rotate your box a little bit, or maybe your wheels if you're since the vehicle's jacked up. Rotate your wheels until it matches up. Then you can insert it, then start your castle nut. Now I can take this off, and add a little Loctite to it. A little dab of Loctite. The castle nut gets tightened down. And then when you torque this down, you're probably going to want to have your tires on the ground. So if your truck's jacked up, you want to put it back down because it will move the drag link and it'll move the steering. This gets tightened down a lot more than the other one does, about twice that much. It gets tightened down to about 180. And then if these don't line up, tighten it a tiny bit until the space in between the crenellations on the castle nut are aligned with the hole, which mine is going this way. So my cotter pin be coming out here, so I just have to align it like that. I could do this with the wheel off, but I got enough space. Now reinsert my cotter pin and bend it up. The last thing we got to do is plumb up the lines. The return line is going to be the smaller one, so that'll be this one here, the one farthest from the frame rail. The power line is going to be the larger one, the one closer to the engine. The one thing I noticed about the return line is that it almost felt like it was like bottoming out. The threads weren't like easy to turn. It was threading in, but it'll kind of feel like it's bottoming out, and then you'll kind of notice the line isn't able to move anymore, and then it seals and tightens up and everything. But inverted flare fittings, do not try to tighten that, like muscle them down. Make them nice and snug, but if you tighten them down too much, it'll ruin the sealing surface on these, and you don't want that. Some people have said that the inserts for the inverted flare fittings from Borgeson aren't super great, so some people do adapters. I'll just have to see, but I got to get everything cleaned up and then fluid in, and then we can start it up and see the difference. So at this point, I've gotten the front end jack back up, and so now what I'll do is I'll fill a reservoir, and then I'll rotate my wheels all the way to the right and then all the way to the left, and then let the box fill up, and then check the fluid and keep adding more until the full mark. Just bleeding the system. You always got to have it jacked up in order to bleed it. You want to bleed it when it's not running. All right, so I did just run this thing for a little bit. There are no leaks from this part of the line, so there are leaks from the power steering pump, which is, I've been trying to solve that for months, but I think I've gotten it pretty good. But there are no leaks from either of these lines. There's no dripping, and the steering definitely does feel tighter. I haven't had time to drive it around really, but it definitely does obviously make a difference, and it's high quality. One thing I will note is that this box is actually farther down than the stock box, so my shaft does sit, like if you see this line where the grease is, this used to sit all the way up here, but it's like a couple inches shorter, and that's about the only difference between that and the stock box, is that this box is a little bit lower profile.